You go up,
Okay, we're getting started.
you probably would know.
Jay Brady,
Yes.
Dee Hollinger.
Here.
S. Kleinschrodt,
Yes.
J. Lloyd Kona,
Present.
Jay Murphy.
Here.
H. Randall.
Here.
Kay Van Bergen Budo.
Please join me for the flag salute.
Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have a motion for approval of the minutes from January 28th
So
and February 4th. Moved by Jim Brady. Do I have a second? Seconded by David. Any questions, comments? Ready to vote? All those in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. Manifest is going around. Any public input? Don't see anybody. Student art report. Any adjustments? I don't think we have any adjustments. Superintendent's report.
So, I pretty much talked about the redesign update, and I think that Scott is gonna talk about this more when we do the advisory board update, but we did have a full day meeting on February 5th. We're on our way, we're still a little fuzzy about what we're doing. I did send out a exit ticket for feedback from participants, and there's 35 people there. And some really good feedback, and Bill Bryan got that feedback, and he responded actually today about how he's gonna back up a little bit and have some more clarity. Because it really was a 2-day training in one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of,
Yes.
it was an awful lot of information.
So what I did is I took all of the resources and tried to put them in a central location and label them to make sense so that people can start. Our charge now is to fill out our charter, the steering committee charter and the project team charter. We have a shared document. I've done a little bit of work in the steering committee charter, but the project team hasn't done any work yet. However, Lynn Holland is on that team.
On the
She's
project.
ready. She's ready to go. So, which is great. So, and then Scott can talk more about it when it's time. And we're gonna do the principal interviews on Wednesday. And we're all ready to go, even though there's a snowstorm. Everybody,
Wednesday, you're doing them during the day?
all day.
So, is that the third Wednesday? Is that our facilities?
It's this week.
Oh, this, next week from Wednesday's facility. Okay.
So can I ask, the candidates that we're interviewing, are they predominantly from outside the district?
There's
or-
one from this area.
Okay,
Actually, there's one from Bethlehem,
oh, okay.
one from Lindenville, Vermont,
Mhm.
and one from Connecticut, and one from Mass.
Oh, wow. So there's 4.
Yeah, we had 5,
Mhm.
and that other person just barely got in. So he,
Oh, okay. All right, great.
so, they're a variety,
Alaska, are you used to cold?
yes.
Right.
All right. That's all I have.
So that's it.
Oh, I
for-
could say that today we did have our meeting with the legislators and the representatives with the North Country superintendents here. Matt put on the Riverman's breakfast. We had our meeting first, and then we went into the cafeteria. It was 13, I think I already said that, but it was great. Much better than last year's. They're very responsive, very supportive. And they did remind us that what they're working on now doesn't get implemented for 3 years.
3 years.
It's really far-reaching. And this Thursday, the governor presents his budget, and they
Yeah.
said, let's pay attention to the new budget.
Now, his budget's not going to be dealing with the school starting after Labor Day, or is it?
No,
That's a whole
It's
different
it's a
issue.
different, it's a bill coming up. So
That's
it's-
another bill
Yep,
that's coming up.
Yep. And I did send a link to you guys today from, Reaching Higher New Hampshire that has all the current bills. It's
Yeah.
a quaint site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can link right into them, they tell you exactly where they're at. And you can pick and choose which ones you want.
Very good. So committee reports, ed program, and I know you guys had your big program of studies last time, so you
Yeah,
didn't meet
and it
today.
was supposed to meet today, but we canceled that, so.
Okay, so next meeting will be
So-
the first of the next month's
mhm.
board meeting.
Yep.
Facilities, we meet next Wednesday. Personnel, nothing right now. Policy, we should be meeting on the 18th. Do we have that scheduled?
We don't have a schedule, but we can. Is that the short meeting before the?
Yes, it's not necessarily a working meeting, but just to,
Just
we
to
gotta get
regroup?
back together and
We gotta
regroup
regroup, okay.
on the legislative updates and the required updates. So we'll say for, the next school board meeting, which is the 18th, to meet at 5:30, the hour before.
If ed programming is meeting at the same time, I'll need to pick which one I go to.
No,
Like, no,
ed programming won't be till
Will be the-
March now,
March.
the first meeting in March. So this is just next week because of the school vacation. We have another board meeting, regular board meeting next
We
Monday.
are next Monday,
Yes.
just to avoid the vacation.
Safety committee, we have waiting on the rescheduled date, but that will be sometime in March.
Okay, yeah, I was looking at
Yeah.
the calendar. I'm
I know, there's
confused
a
at this
bunch of-
point, Yeah,
Bunch of back and
Okay.
forth, but they
So March
determined
sometime.
that March will
Okay.
be the next meeting. Strategic planning, we're kind of doing updates quarterly, so we're not in that rotation right now.
We're almost gonna be combining that with the redesign, because they're so intermingled.
Yep,
You know, so
makes a lot of sense.
when we sort of talk about the redesign, we really are
We'll have
touching.
updates to the strategic.
Yes, we're still touching on that strategic. So it's kind of nice that we can still kind of have a
So
little
that
input.
document is there to guide.
Yes.
Yep.
Very good. So now we are in advisory committee, CTE renovation advisory committee. Haven't met. Redesign committee with Scott that Marion had just briefly touched upon. Did you want to add to that?
Well, I
For
want
the
to,
board?
Oh, I think these three.
I think there were about 25 people here. What did you say, Mary? 35.
35.
Yeah, it was a full library.
Right.
And of course, we worked with
Here are steps.
Bill, when we did the strategic planning 3 years ago. So there was some familiarization with him and with us. And it was a lot of, it was certainly a lot of information for a day. It was almost too much, but I understood we had to kind of get the ball rolling and obviously I think things will start to develop as we shake things out. We did have, at one point, we had probably 8 to 10 students as part of the group, which was very nice to have that input along with the adult input. And that's the biggest change between 3 years ago when we did the strategic and now. We were able to include the student input. And it was very clear, their input's different than the adult input. That was very clear. And it's nice to have a balance. And that's what I felt. I encouraged the student input. Because they're going to keep us focused on what's important to them instead of what's in focus on what's important to us as adults. So that was good. I know Marion sent me, because she at the end was taking pictures of everything and there was notes.
Yeah.
So I got a whole lot of stuff this weekend and I sorted through it. And I think the most important thing I pulled out of that was the charter. It was the charge.
Yeah.
That's coming forward. And I liked what Marion I liked the charge you had. It was certainly from everything that we talked about. So I'm not sure if we're going to really talk about that tonight, but
Maybe that's, because it says that, the first meeting, I think that
To
the
develop
board,
the charge.
so the board's gonna go back and just agree with that charge.
So
Do you
maybe,
have
do you have a next scheduled date for the next meeting on
we
that?
don't. I did not see another date.
He's gonna get back to us Monday, but it's gonna be a combination of Zoom meetings.
Yep.
and other things.
Yeah, that's the one thing that didn't come out of it is when we're meeting again.
Cause he needed all the information.
Right, yeah.
to Put it
First.
together.
Right. We did have a bit of a timeline. I don't see that here, but it was certainly in the notes. The goal is to have a recommendation for the school board by the end of June, beginning of July. I'm personally a little nervous about that.
That's a pretty aggressive.
Yes.
Yeah.
So very interesting. It's just a recommendation.
It's just a recommendation, but I think
I
we all recognize this is a really,
A lot.
really big step. I mean, this is a huge step, and
Really.
I don't want to feel rushed to do it. I want to be able to take our time, because if we feel rushed, then the community's going to feel rushed,
Yeah,
and then the community's going to question, well, why, how can you do this so quickly?
Right.
We didn't look at it enough. We didn't spend enough time looking at all of the angles and what would happen if we moved this to here and this to there.
I think you also have to, I mean, I just from what we saw in the strategic planning committee, I mean, I felt like that went on for quite some time, and towards the end, you could kind of feel that fatigue
Yes.
of everyone. So
Yep.
it's like, you have
we
to have
a
that
happy
balance of,
medium.
yeah, you gotta
Well,
wrap
it's
it
nice
up.
to have the momentum on the front end.
Right,
We
right.
actually had a lot of not momentum on the
Right.
front end of
The
the strategic
Right.
planning process where we just kind of.
But we
had
picked it up,
method.
we picked it up about a third of the way in.
Right,
Yeah,
And did
And then
really
really-
well
yes,
for that second third, and
Yeah.
then the last third, we phased out again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
My worry is because we're looking at really important issues.
Mhm.
If you look at other school districts who are doing the same thing as us, they didn't do this in 3 or 4 months. It was, they really talked about it and vetted it and put it out to the public. I mean, Berlin, when you look at what they're doing, that's been years,
Mhm.
years,
Colbrook as well.
So
and Colbrook as well.
I'm wondering, Scott, maybe it would make sense. The next step for the board, for you to bring to the board is the actual charge, which will kind of define
Yeah,
that
you wanna bring
timeline
that
a little
up?
bit.
We
So
have it
between the two of you, I mean,
Yeah, Marion has
we
it,
can do it
and I
next
didn't-
week to
right.
approve the
Okay,
charge.
and that might make sense. We
yeah,
can do
I
it
could
next week.
read to you what I think that we all came up with, and it's part of our strategic plan. Is provide recommendations to the board to optimize the use of our district resources in order to provide our students with the best educational experiences while balancing cost savings and education.
So you're just
First
hearing it.
off-
We're not gonna
Right.
vote on anything tonight.
Right.
But that's,
But
just
just general,
put it out there. That's kind of, the themes were to what's best for the students and to be fiscally sound
Right.
and efficient with our funds. Those are the two big themes, and we're trying to marry them. And I know Marion had it, and I looked at it and I said, yeah, that looks good. I didn't know if that would be presented tonight or
right.
maybe next week
I
really
think
would make a lot
next-
more sense.
I think next week will
So
probably
that it
make
can be
sense.
packaged.
And with that,
Yeah.
like you were saying, Scott, that, maybe having that group together and having a set goal for June is pretty rough. That,
Yeah,
as far
oh,
as putting that in. With the strategic planning committee, I remember several times Lynn Holland would come in and give us updates throughout that process, So maybe looking at June as a kind of a midpoint maybe or something, because it is a lot to
Yeah.
put together and present the whole thing of that charge in June.
Particularly if we're
say-
talking about really vetting community input
Right.
and having community members have the opportunity to weigh in on how their tax dollars are being spent.
Mhm.
You might touch base with the folks who are working up in Colebrook, particularly their community engagement piece for how they actually brought community members together to hold public discussions and public forums. Their level of engagement was pretty awesome with the work that they're doing right now in what I think is maybe an even more overwhelming project, and that is to try to consolidate. I think right now they're talking Colebrook, Canaan, and Pittsburgh. So even an interstate cooperative school program in Stewartstown. So that is a huge undertaking. It's got similar undertones to what we're addressing here in the White Mountains Regional School District. But Brian McPearl is the school board chair up there, and he actually used some really nice community networking kinds of methods for the garnering some of that input and actually having lots of people attend. You know, one of the things we really struggled with strategic planning is that despite all of our communication outward about the activities we were doing to garner public input, they were never really very well attended.
Not the end anymore.
And I think Brian and his team up in Colbrook did a really nice job at filling their gym, like filling the gym with people talking about it.
Practically speaking, we should just keep in mind that if we're talking about sort of a June deadline of some sort, people will scatter in the summer.
Yeah.
So just from a calendar perspective, it's kind of a rough time.
I think we have to let this play out a little bit, but I'm kind of putting the caveat out there.
Right.
I personally thought when I saw that, I'm like, oh boy, that's a real rush, and I felt a little uncomfortable. And I said that, I was vocal, you know, I just kind of said, "Now, here's my concern." But
So I think it would be fair to say then bringing to the next meeting between
Charge.
you,
The charge.
bring the charge
Yeah.
for
I agree.
approval by the board, and maybe we'll have, you know, an update or of recommendations or where you, or some date that you guys can kind of put to bring the board, up to date. Maybe not coming in with a full-on recommendation,
right,
you know, all at once, too, in addition to it being June.
If you've
Whatever
got a
the
passionate
committee
group,
thinks.
though, they may really make,
Yeah.
they may move really fast. And if that's the case, I think it just is
That's
incumbent
true,
upon us to make sure that we
That
never
it gets
skip
out
that
there.
update in
Right.
every one of our meetings. Let's make sure,
Yeah.
you know, we're really up to speed.
Sounds good.
Well, if I might, can I just jump in just a
Sure.
little bit, even though I'm not on the committee, but, you know, I think the idea about the public being involved is probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because there's just something about the power of suggestion, planting that seed in their mind so that they have plenty of time to digest this, so when it finally happens, because it just won't be a surprise, you know? Whether it's quick or, you know, long-term, and that, to me, that's always gonna be the big rub.
It's really important that they feel that all of our constituents feel like they've been engaged on the front end and
Yeah.
not had a decision passed down. And we saw that kind of stretch with Jefferson, that public dialogue happened separate from the school board discussions and not always accurately in line with what was being decided on these things. So
now the other thing, Marion, is it didn't get brought up, and I was kind of surprised, but during our strategic planning 3 years ago, we had hired Carl Ladd's group.
Yeah.
And they looked at recommendations. Well, here are some recommendations, and there were about 6 or 7. Now, one of them was to close Jefferson School and disperse those students to Lancaster and Whitefield, which we did.
Right.
But there were also other recommendations in that we probably, as we get further along, we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
Right. and
We had
I
this
think
done,
that project team is gonna grab that information.
Okay.
As part of the data.
Because
So
it
that
didn't get
gives
brought
some
up the other
data
day
on it.
at all, and
Right.
Right, because there wasn't really, it's a little premature at that point.
Yeah,
Because now they
yeah.
gotta identify the data.
okay,
we get.
okay.
Right, that was completed in May 2017, I believe it was, the New Hampshire School Administrations Association in Carl had. And there's a lot of useful information in that. So if that's
It's
going
right
towards the
online, yeah.
project
Yeah.
team for that data. So,
Darcy has new data out as well.
very good. Under unfinished business, SRO officer update, which we're kind of where we were last time we talked. What I did want to say is, since, I don't know when Lancaster's Select Board's next meeting is, because if it's the same as our meetings, we don't have one in 2 weeks because of school vacation, so maybe me and the Lancaster reps could attend that meeting,
Let's see.
if anybody knows. If that, I think they're the second and fourth, pretty much the same as us.
Yeah, maybe, I have to stop at the town office this week, so I can try and find out.
So if
Did you
we
have to
could,
get on the agenda?
right, we can try and do that, but even to attend too, I think at some point, public input might be
Mhm.
just to
Push it along a little
kind
bit.
of mention that we're here still. And looking for that, but, so I'll make a note, if you're gonna go, Herb,
Yeah,
if you can ask if it is that date, which if you guys are available, because it would be during school vacation
Right.
week, I think it's a good opportunity for us to go since we don't have
Yeah.
this meeting.
I think I'll be around.
The last one they have posted on their website was last week, and then they show it again on March 4th.
Oh, so maybe they only meet once a month.
Oh, sorry, Tuesday, the 19th of February,
Tuesday,
because
Oh.
Monday's the President's Day.
that's good.
Yeah.
So actually,
Next Tuesday.
maybe we could do that anyway, or when you go in, see if maybe we could get on the agenda for
Okay.
that 19th meeting, and if
Okay.
not, it would probably be a good time for us to figure out when we could, us three could go
Yes.
at the next available one that we don't have a board meeting.
Okay, all right.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And new business,
Can I just make a comment?
yes.
Tonight, I was here after school and I didn't know there was gonna be a ball game here, so I said, I'll stay after and watch. And I know Marion was there too. And it was the unified team, so it's kind of the Special Olympic kind of
Yeah.
combination team. And it was wonderful to watch young people enjoying the game of basketball. Didn't matter who won or lost, did not matter. And there were, I don't know, there was probably 100 people here watching, and everyone cheered for both teams. It didn't matter who scored. And it was very nice. So I think some, thank you and credit to Carrie, because Carrie and Ken are the two coaches. I am sure she's not getting paid enough to stay after school and do the practices and go to these games. I think this is probably kind of on the side. And I know the White Mountain students, you could just see the smiles on their faces,
Mhm.
and the Hanover students too. Everybody was enjoying it. It was just very nice to see.
And they're providing them dinner. They're having dinner now.
Oh, they're having dinner too.
Both teams together.
Yeah.
Even better.
So
Isn't that cool?
it really is nice to see that and it's been about 5 years that this has kind of been building.
Yeah.
And it was just very, very nice.
It's a nice crowd too.
Oh, it was very nicely attended.
The other thing on the new business, last Wednesday, I attended the New Hampshire School Board Association. Commissioner Edelblut asked for the New Hampshire School Board Association to have an audience in talking about a program that the Department of Ed is rolling out called Learning Everywhere. Something that's already been started, and they're looking to roll it out and start kind of certifying these outside organizations to give credit to students, almost like an ELO, but outside of our curriculum. It's kind of a lot to explain, but I do have a lot of information on it. I think, I don't have the exact date, but there were a lot of questions in regards to that. It was pretty well attended. There were probably about 50 school board members from around the state, as well as a few superintendents, and the commissioner basically gave the example of, if a student was going to, say, a Boys and Girls Club theater program, and it was 3 nights a week until 9 p.m. The Department of Education is looking to certify the Boys and Girls Club to meet the minimum standards for the theater program in the state, or as an elected. So the Boys and Girls Club would go to the Department of Ed. They have their checklists of what would qualify them. It's almost like little charters kind of all around, if you look at it that way, or ELOs. But here, with our ELOs that we require of our students, we know Mike Curtis kind of holds the outside entities accountable, and there's a lot of following along with that, and a lot of work goes with that with each individual student. So say the Boys and Girls Club, that particular program is accepted as meeting minimum standards. Their certification would last for 5 years. Any of our students could go and use that, and they could come back and say, here's my credit for my theater, outside of basically the brick and mortar or whatever we offer here. The commissioner did say that this was to enhance what we currently have. And again, there's a lot of questions. If you look at our theater program, I think personally, I think it's above minimum standards, what the state requires. So our students would fare better to stay here in that sense. There isn't any money that goes along with this, but I'm very leery about why this is kind of happening. He says it's to lessen the disparity gap of students not graduating or, falling through the cracks. It used to be No Child Left Behind. Now it's SAS. Now it's kind of encompassing. I could see it happening a lot more in southern New Hampshire. I don't know exactly what we'll see around here, but this goes for any class. Could be algebra, could be science credits, social. So this is up and
It's an
coming.
interesting theory. The management of it sounds very challenging.
Right, and one of the other questions that we had too is take our culinary, for example. We have a very full enrolled culinary program because it's great, it's above minimum standards and all that. Say, as an example, Grandma's Kitchen wanted to teach pie baking or, and does a real good job at that, could get certified from the Department of Ed, and then that student could do that program, and instead of doing culinary here, when that culinary class was here, they'd be in a study hall here. So there's a lot of questions. One, you're lowering the enrollment in the current program we have here in the school, so what happens to the teacher? Two, some kids may feel like, oh, I'm gonna go there 3 nights a week during the summer, and then I'm gonna, or if there's approved enough, could essentially gather all those credits for their entire diploma. So there's a lot of questions, but it's coming.
And I don't think the alternate learning pathways are necessarily a bad idea, particularly when we look at things like distance between schools and some of the
Right.
questions that have come up with transportation and snow days and those kinds of things. I can see the attractiveness there. Many industries are moving to alternate pathways, so education
Right.
is not, we're certainly not up to speed with some industries. However, what does that really look like? I know our guidance program works very carefully to make sure we have a profile that communicates well to higher education institutions. And so how do you
Right.
translate that on a transcript?
You-
Is it
you
taking
can't because
advantage of
it's just-
competency-based?
The way it's done is it's only the outside organization is meeting and approved by the Department of Education on minimum standards for the state. The commissioner says that it would encompass the ability for students on a 504, special ed, for example. But the resources, you're not gonna find the same resources, certainly, that we have in the school here to support, whether it's counseling or something along those lines. So I don't know how they're gonna integrate those resources, even though they claim that they will be with those organizations. But they're handing essentially a credit to us that we have to back, even though we have no, assessment of it.
And those
So that's tough.
opportunities may
Discussion and
vary,
programming
and
more
kids
deeply.
will get a different rigor.
Right. So,
It's just its infancy.
Well, and that's a piece, it's in its infancy.
To chime in,
he's saying that we're gonna the Department of Ed is gonna start certifying organizations probably June or July.
What's it called again? Sorry.
Learning everywhere.
Here's a couple concerns. As someone who is a quasi-administrator teacher
Right.
with high school students, and we do have the ELO credits and work study credits available. They're limited. They should be limited. The problem is that if we're gonna do culinary arts here, we have a certain curriculum and standards that we must meet, that students must meet to earn that credit. To ask Grandma's Kitchen, not that they wouldn't learn there, because I know that it's a terrific place, probably a wonderful place to learn. But it's learning in a different way, and how are we going to justify that they're learning the same thing there as if they were here taking the course?
Right.
The way we're doing it with Mr. Curtis is probably the best way we can do it, because we have an adult from our school that's going to the job sites
Right.
and is checking in
And
and,
it's
is
accountable,
making sure
Yeah.
that they are meeting the standards. So I'm good with that.
Right.
Just to have this willy-nilly, wow, they're gonna show up and they're just gonna say, oh, I've got 5 credits at Sands Village, Grandma, just to use some. Grandma's Kitchen, Shaw's, and you're kind of like,
And on a 5-year cert.
And so
I
it would be
would-
a 5-year cert, so that was another question. What happens, unfortunately, if the leader that's overseeing that organization or that group of program no longer is in business?
Right.
So halfway through their credits or their almost credits, what happens there? And they're reengaging, you know, if we offer that program even, because it could be an elective that we've never seen. What I think the commissioner was trying to say is this is a program that's going to complement what's already in the building, hopefully, that's true. In addition to, it's not what the state is requiring now for ELOs of the state and all the districts in the state. It's not happening elsewhere. It's happening here, and he did compliment White Mountain
it
several
is.
times.
We are
So
certainly,
we're very,
way
doing
ahead of
very
the
well
game.
in that sense. I mean, it could be VLAX, it could be ELOs, it could be, you know, there's alternative. We do have a very individualized, I feel,
Mhm.
pathways for these students to get their
Mhm.
diploma. And some other districts in the states are just not as up to date. And I think this is kind of an intervention, if you will, that the commissioner is trying to make sure that everybody's doing what we're doing already.
Mhm.
And the
So-
families who recognize those disparities have an alternate pathway to seek education
Right.
for their kids. I mean, I can certainly see that being of value in a district that is not ours, where the ELO opportunities aren't there, where the Futures program isn't there. And so families are
Or
sitting
in
back
industry
saying,
too.
my
you
kid
know.
needs something different, or they need to learn something different. And can we go out here and seek it here to augment what our school is already providing? I can certainly see that sort of complementary
Or it's to,
tie-in.
as a whole to say, kids are learning everywhere now, let's give them credit for it.
Mm.
Kind of back way of
But
looking
it
at
comes
it.
back to the criteria, right? It comes back to how do we
Right.
know?
We
You know,
don't,
it's one thing to work, it's another thing to learn.
Right.
Hopefully you learn while you work, but that's
Right.
not always a given. And so if there isn't good criteria and oversight
right,
of those locations
right. They're
by
not certified
educators,
teachers.
by educators.
not educators.
Exactly, yeah, yeah.
Tough, but it's coming.
Interesting, everyone to watch.
And I don't think that there'll be that many, you know, outside organizations in our area, certainly,
Right.
than there will be in Manchester or the like, because it could be industry or this. And there is some component where there's no charge or a minimal charge or a sliding fee scale for those outside programs. So it can cost them, but that would be up to them to require, you know, get the transportation and for the family to decide if that's what's right for their student. But again, so many questions. Then what happens to the attendance requirement? Are we gonna have a couple of students that maybe get all their credits except for maybe 1 or 2 classes here? And they're gonna be sitting in a study hall all day? So,
I'd let it play out a little bit.
yeah,
I think there's gonna be a lot of politics yet to come from that.
That's probably true. It's an interesting opportunity for families at homeschool, for example, though, in terms
Right.
of having the opportunity to augment curriculum that they're using.
so that's my new business anyway. Anybody else?
We had a skier today, Bella Cronin, who won the Division III champs.
Oh, awesome.
Really? Awesome.
I know, she's been tearing it up since middle school for sure.
She won the Duke championship. Yes, I got a text from her. Proud father.
No doubt. I think we are ready for action agenda items. Could I have a motion to approve the following co-curricular nominations? Caroline Carr, Math Counts Advisor at West for a salary of $1,134. Angela Roy, Grade 8 Co-Advisor, LES salary $405. Christine Forrest, Grade 8 Co-Advisor, LES salary $405.
So moved.
Moved by Kristen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by David. Any questions, comments? Ready to vote? All in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. Action agenda item 2. Could I have a motion to approve the following teacher nominations school year 18-19? Sibley Brown, ESOL teacher, salary $39,600, prorated to $15,840, step 2 MA. Motion?
So moved.
Moved by Scott. Do I have a second? Seconded by Jim Brady.
And is this the teacher that we need because of the family that moved in and we need to provide that ESL?
Yes.
What's the language?
Spanish.
Is it Spanish? We don't have that now. We don't have anybody doing ESL with Spanish?
One teacher, we don't have any ESL teachers this year.
Okay, but we have in the past, haven't we? Or-
Yes, yes.
Okay.
As
But we
needed.
had
As
zero,
needed. Okay,
we had 0 children this year.
okay,
So we didn't.
okay.
All set, ready to vote? All in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Action agenda item 3. Could I have a motion to approve the following professional staff nominations, school year 1920, Chelsea Arsenault, school psychologist, salary of $68,000 for 185 days. Moved by Jim Brady,
Second.
seconded by Herb.
It's grant funded, by the way.
This is grant funded. Can I ask, can we amend it to say district psychologist instead of school psychologist? I mean, does it?
Well, school
I don't-
psychologist is the certification that the person
Is
has.
this a district psychologist?
District-wide,
Can we add district-wide,
district-wide school psychologist.
just to be clear?
Mhm.
Is everybody okay with that? So district-wide school psychologist and then the salary. $185. No, we used to have a school psychologist in Whitefield. He's now the principal. Was he? I don't think so. Anyway. Ready to vote as amended. All in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. Action agenda item 4. Could I have a motion to accept the donation from New England First in the amount of $7,500 for White Mountain Regional High School First Robotics Team?
So moved.
Moved by David. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Kristen. Any questions, comments? I think it's great. Thank you very much. Ready to vote? All in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. Action agenda, item 5. Could I have a motion to approve superintendent of schools 3-year contract for school years 2019-20, 2020-21, 2021-22?
So I'll second that.
Moved by Jim Brady, seconded by Kristen. Any questions, comments?
Are we gonna do the evaluation before we do this?
We're voting on this right now.
But should we do the evaluation that we just did? Just so
We're
that
meeting
we,
this evening. Well, okay, go ahead.
just so that we have the evaluation done. And it would make sense, once the evaluation's done and everything's good, then we would move to then offering her a contract.
What does everybody else think?
If nothing else, I think we should table this until we have that evaluation completed. And then this will come right after that.
It does feel like a rules of order kind of lineup.
Well, especially
have to
since we
table
just did the
it.
evaluation and, we just have to sit down and talk about it, that's all.
Mhm.
Finish that process.
Yeah.
And then you go to the next process, which would be,
Could we go into the,
Well, it's not going to technically be completed according to the policy by the first meeting in March. So we can hold on.
if people feel that way, I mean, that's what I'm suggesting, but I'm not dictating either.
I guess I don't really have a strong feeling one way or the other.
Fine.
I move table.
Second,
Moved to table by Jim Brady, seconded by Scott. All in favor to table until the evaluation is complete. That's unanimous.
now, Jessica.
Yes.
And do you think the evaluation will be ready for the March 11th meeting?
Yes,
You do, okay.
it'll be before that. We have, well, that will be the meeting that we will all be sitting together, but we're meeting tonight in non-public.
Oh, okay.
for just the board though.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
And as we amend the evaluation process and smooth that out moving forward, we can line it up so that it comes out
Right.
of the next round of
Mhm.
extensions, right? So it's kind of the last year things will be fiddly.
So it'll be basically lined up with the new year election, more or less, too. It'll be completed for the previous year. Yeah. Very good. So next on the agenda, we have any public input?
I'd love to hear what you have for the SROs from Lancaster and Whitefield as well. Is that gonna be discussed?
We discussed already under,
apologize,
that's okay.
Yeah.
Under unfinished business, we don't have a regular discussion for the SRO in Whitefield, that's already in place. We're waiting on basically the town of Lancaster and the town police department in getting nominations for that position in Lancaster. What we talked about earlier is because it has been kind of going along, we've been waiting.
We need to have the time to come more often, but I feel like we're all being shut out. Got a lock and key on our school, plus a police officer in there. And within the parents that we were discussing as I walked in, how there's a disconnect between parents, school board, and the schools. This is getting really kind of shut down, and it's not just me. And there are more of us out there, and I just want to get information about what's happening. Yeah. It's not something you can answer. It's just, there is a disconnect.
You're saying parents don't feel welcome in the school?
Definitely.
That's what you're saying?
Oh,
Definitely.
okay.
I'm on my
I wasn't
second-
really necessarily following you because my next thing was we're trying to get Lancaster's SRO in place
Right, and I
as
wasn't
something that
aware
we're
of that. I
trying
thought
to
they'd
do.
already had theirs too. So
No.
there is a huge disconnect between the 9 years that I've been in children in that school system, like where we are now. We're not welcome.
I'm sorry to hear that.
You mean
Me too.
that it's changed recently?
I
Or
don't think
that
any
it's-
of it has to
There's a
do.
lot of, we all get fingerprinted, we all volunteer our time as the children have grown. And now it's, make sure you email. We're on, my wife just did it, we're on our 9th new teacher. There's just this disconnect between the school and the parents, and it's like, whoa, and we can't be the only ones.
Do you think some of it has to do with the construction that's going on at the moment?
That's been going on, but even prior to that, I mean, these are conversations we have at dinner.
Yeah.
And I'm here because I need to start, I don't know, my name's Scott Black, I grew up in this community, I went to White Mountain Regional, we've lived in this community for 40 plus years. We own property within these communities, and our children, we had them later in life, and now we're involved with the school system. And go along, I think public system is great. Charter systems are not the real world. Public school system dealing with all that different people and what the real world is about. I'm a positive public school system. But when I start getting shut out, I'm like, whoa. We volunteer our time, we will take in every stray person that's walking down the street. And it's just it's not a good feeling.
You're equating it with the disconnect with the
school
school
system.
resource officer?
Not just, no, it's everything together.
This
where
school year?
where we're going right now with the construction is almost like just the end all, be all. Locked out of our school, give us your children. First 2 weeks of school for kindergarten, first grade, parents are not going to be allowed. The children that come from this school system to get their buses, we'll see where it goes. In the past, they've been allowed in the school system when it's really cold or it's raining.
Mhm.
My understanding, we'll see where it goes. They're not going to be allowed in with this double gated system and the way the protection of letting kids into the school. It hasn't happened,
No.
so I can't say it will
Right.
happen,
No,
but you've got and it's not my children. My children we live right in the center of Whitefield, so they come down. It's not my children, but I can see where this is going. And it's not good. I've got teachers that I've had from when I was in elementary school that I still speak to. I still have fond memories of. And I hope my children have the same thing. but it doesn't seem like it's going that way.
Okay.
You know,
We appreciate the input. Scott.
and I appreciate you letting me speak, you
Of course.
know, but it's just, my wife and I need to know. We've been working, doing our thing, and you guys come here every week, God bless you, making decisions.
Not
for
every
school
week,
district.
but.
Selectmen, you know, everybody's making decisions and we're working. But we need to come back down and put in the time that you guys are putting in too, and we haven't. So shame on us. And that's a discussion in our house as well. If you're gonna talk about it, you need to know what's going on. So here I am, and I will hopefully be here when you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay. That's it. We do have a non-public session. And when we're finished with the non-public session, which I'll ask for, roll call and a motion to go into non-public, we will come back into public to seal the minutes and then adjourn the meeting.
Sure.
So could I have a motion to move into non-public session according to RSA 91-A:3 personnel?
So moved. I'll second it.
Moved by David, seconded by Kristen.
It's 7:20.
At 7:16.
Public?
Yeah, you're public.
You want more than I am. I'm part of it.
Oh, well, congratulations.
So Jay Brady,
Yes.
Dee Hollander,
All right, thank you, guys.
Comments.
John Schro's done,
Yes.
Jay Lloyd Pono, Jay Murphy, H. Randall, Kay Van Bergen Buda.
What? Okay, so that'll be.